And we begin on the immigration front. A federal judge blocking the Trump administration from carrying out fast-track deportations. It's a cornerstone of President Trump's mass deportation plan. Madeleine Rivera has more from Washington. Hey, Maddie.
Good morning, Griff. This is a notable setback in the administration's immigration enforcement efforts. The case focuses on the government's use of expedited removals. The Trump administration expanded its scope in January as part of a policy shift so that non-citizens who are arrested anywhere in the country could be quickly removed if they cannot show they've been in the country for 2 years. In her opinion, federal district court judge Gia Cobb sides with immigrant advocacy group Make the Road, saying the court does not cast doubt on the constitutionality of the expedited removal statute, nor on its long-standing application at the border. It merely holds that in applying the statute to a huge group of people living in the interior of the country who have not previously been subject to expedited removal, the government must afford them due process. The procedures currently in place fall short. Cobb, a Biden appointee, argues the government risks removing people who now have a, quote, weighty liberty interest in staying in the U.S., unlike people who were traditionally quickly removed after crossing the border. So the administration is likely to appeal, of course. A spokesman for the Department of Homeland Security tells the New York Times Cobb's ruling ignores the president's clear authorities and that the department was exercising its full authority under federal law by placing illegal aliens who have been here for less than 2 years into expedited removal. This comes as the White House says it's ramping up its immigration crackdown in sanctuary cities, calling it a national security and public safety concern. Griff.
So, Maddie, just a quick follow-up so that our viewers understand, does this halt all deportations?
All deportations? It's not really clear in that front, so we'll have to look into the opinion to see what this is. But it is a big move and, again, a huge setback for the administration regarding its immigration crackdown, Griff.
Yeah, quite a Friday night surprise heading into Labor Day weekend. Madeleine Rivera in Washington. Yeah. Madeleine, thank you.
You got it.
All right, here to dig into all of this, former acting ICE director, former DHS official, and former federal prosecutor Jonathan Fahey. Jonathan, this was quite a surprise last night, and it's interesting as this Biden-appointed judge, Judge Cobb, is saying that, you cannot do this fast track or expedited removals. But I think it's worth pointing out, I do believe that under President Obama, certainly there were millions deported, many of them, if not a majority of them, on fast track. So it's not like this is necessarily new. What's your read on it?
That's exactly right, Griff. It's not exactly new. And what her ruling is, it just basically eliminated the expansion that the Trump administration put into place, which the normal expedited removal policy is if it's within 14 days of entry and within 100 miles of the border, you can be expeditedly removed, meaning you don't have to go through the immigration judge process. The Trump administration expanded that to a full 2 years and anywhere in the country. So that's all that applies. So the Trump administration will appeal this. But I think what's kind of interesting about this, and you see this in a lot of immigration cases, it's almost like people that violate the law for a longer period of time are treated better, when in fact it almost seems like it should be the opposite. But I fully expect they'll appeal this, and there are many tools in the toolkit, and these people will still be deported. They'll just have to go through a longer process in the immigration court. But a lot of them, again, aren't going to want to go through that process if they ultimately are going to lose at the end, and they know the Trump administration has the resolve to not only deport them, but also to not let them in and not let them have benefits if they're still remaining here.
And so just to be clear, Jonathan, you may have heard I put Maddie just a little bit on the spot because we don't really know with the ruling, but this doesn't necessarily halt all deportations currently.
Yeah, correct. It does not halt all deportations, and it does not even halt all expedited removal deportations. It's just the expanded group that the Trump administration put into place at the beginning of this year and was also put into place in also the first Trump administration in 2019 as well.
All right, let's talk about this. The man at the center of the deportation battle now wants to silence the Trump administration attorneys for Kilmar Abrego Garcia, asking a federal judge to issue a gag order against top White House officials this week to stop them making comments that could sway a jury against him, including accusations of criminal gang activity. All this while the Salvadoran national, who was deported this year and brought back on a human smuggling charge, now wants asylum in the U.S. Where do you see this heading?
Well, let's take the asylum case first. He already lost that case previously. He already claimed asylum, and he was not granted asylum, although he got withholding from being removed to El Salvador because it was going to be arguably too dangerous for him to return there. But to claim asylum successfully, you have to have a fear of persecution and torture or physical violence if you return to your home country. He didn't show that before. And the other thing you have to show is that there's no suitable third party country that could take him into custody. So both of those are not really in play because he's already lost on the first one, and El Salvador is in fact substantially safer than it was when he first made that claim. And then there are multiple third parties that he can be sent to, including, I believe it's Uganda is the one they're talking about now. So he's going to lose his case. It'll gum it up a little bit in the court to keep him here but detained. The other issue on the pretrial publicity, that's a frequent claim in a lot of court cases that have a lot of publicity. I think where the defense will lose on that is they're not just commenting, meaning the administration isn't commenting on the case, they're commenting on policy in general. And I think a court is going to be reticent to say an administration can't comment on immigration policy as a whole. And typically courts rule in favor of free speech and just assume or presume a jury will follow the instructions to make their decision based on what's heard in court. But the most important thing is I don't think this case ever goes back to Tennessee because once they let him out, the Trump administration is going to deport him, so I don't think it will really ultimately come into play at all.
Yeah, and we still continue, Jonathan, to see Democrats rallying around Abrego Garcia in the name of due process. And as you point out rightfully, not once but twice, he's received a final order of removal for entering the country illegally. And that's the crux of where this all begins. Do you see, has he gotten his fair due process rights or not?
Yeah, he on the immigration front, certainly he has, and he'll get even more process, so that at the end of it, when he gets removed, he will have gotten more process than virtually any other illegal immigrant. But again, it does raise questions. Is this really the Democrats' concern? Because they do seem to be opposing any immigration measures, anything to crack down on illegal immigrants, any place people are housed or anything else. So it seems like, it's certainly fair to infer that their motive isn't due process, but it's to keep the illegal aliens in this country because they think it's the most politically advantageous for them as a party.
Jonathan, Democrats also continue to be up in arms over Alligator Alcatraz, right? Where that seems to be shutting down. The detention facility is expected to clear out completely in the coming days after a judge ruled it should be closed. Here's what Tom Homan, border czar, had to say, excuse me, on the judge's concerns.
I walked through the detention part where the aliens are housed, clean, well kept. And I went to the medical facility and talked to the medical staff and seen the great medical program they have there. And as far as the facility itself, it's sitting on existing concrete that was already there in the airport. So I don't understand the judge's ruling. I think it's a radical decision. I think it's really about anti-immigration enforcement rather than the conditions of the facility. I was there.
It's an interesting point, Jonathan. What do you think? Is the judge taking a stance rather than looking at the facility itself?
Well, it certainly seems so, and Tom Homan's exactly right. This was an abandoned airstrip in the state facility, and the only reason this got into court is because of this argument that it's now a federal facility and it should be under all these federal environmental rules, and because of that, this will somehow harm storks and panthers and things like that. And I don't think anyone's really buying it. It does seem to be a pretextual lawsuit. It was brought by, I think, a group called Friends of the Everglades, as well as some other groups. And this idea that somehow the storks and panthers and other animals are in worse shape because it's now a federal facility versus a state facility really doesn't make a whole lot of sense. And I think everyone could see through this, that it's really pretextual to prevent illegal aliens from being detained and removed. And you would hope these environmental groups, if they really cared about the animals in these areas, I'm sure there's a better use of their money, because deporting illegal aliens certainly isn't making storks and panthers or any other animals' lives worse off. Yeah. It might in fact make them better. It may be just probably a neutral factor. But again, I think it's a pretextual lawsuit, it's again designed to shut down deportations, nothing more.
Hey, quickly, before we run out of time, Jonathan, I do want to ask you, because we've talked a lot over the years about immigration, excuse me, and the DOJ is doing something interesting. They're now, excuse me, allowing the attorneys approved by the Attorney General to serve as a temporary immigration judge, whether or not they've had experience in immigration law. The DOJ says that will help ease the massive backlog of cases. What do you think about that?
It's a great idea to use these resources to train these attorneys up, because remember, these immigration courts aren't Article 3 courts, meaning an independent judiciary. They're already part of the Department of Justice. So there are some talented, sharp lawyers there that can be trained on immigration law, so they could get rid of not only the current cases that are coming in, but the backlog, I believe, is a couple million cases. So they need to get through the backlog, get through the new cases. Great idea, great use of resources, and I think it'll be effective.
Yeah, it's a massive backlog indeed. We'll see where that goes. Jonathan Fahey, thank you very much. Have a great Labor Day weekend.
I'm Steve Ducey.
I'm Brian Kilmeade.
And I'm Ainsley Earhart. And click here to subscribe to the Fox News YouTube page to catch our hottest interviews and most compelling analysis.